China is building a state-of-the-art military presence on the tropical island of Hainan. That poses a grave threat to the US and its Indo-Pacific allies, and could be an economic boon to Beijing. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. This is Hainan Island, known by some as China's Hawaii. It's a tropical tourist paradise flush with exotic resorts, stunning statuary, and serene temples, topped with stunning statuary. It even had a decent creature feature take place there. You know, it's nice to mention fictional monsters on this channel for a change. It's also popular with the Chinese Communist Party, which holds a ton of meetings on the island that I'm sure are more about their love of cocktails at sunset than plans for world domination, because even brutal authoritarians need a vacation now and then. But Hainan Island is also the cornerstone of a $50 billion military stronghold in the South China Sea. Because how can you call it a tropical island paradise if it doesn't even have rocket launchers? Swaths of farmland and civilian ports on this tropical paradise have been transformed into military facilities, like this one, the Greater Ulan Naval Base. It was valued in 2022 at more than $18 billion, rivaling Oahu's famous Pearl Harbor base in terms of total value. And it's money well spent for the CCP. The Greater Ulan Naval Base is split into two parts, thanks to two deep water bays, which are certainly useful for naval purposes. The East Ulan Naval Base is home to two large ship destroyer piers, 6 nuclear submarine piers, and a submarine cave, and a vessel degaussing pier. Degaussing, for those who don't know, is when electric cables are installed around the circumference of a ship's hull, running on both sides from bow to stern. That helps make the ship less vulnerable to magnetic mine sensors by canceling out its magnetic field, although there are still other ways of detecting the ship. This base houses some of the most expensive military infrastructure sites in the South China Sea, and it's the flagship project of the CCP on the island, though the island also hosts a space launch site, a PLA rocket force base, and 3 air bases, as well as weapons storage depots. Crucially for Beijing, anti-air and anti-ship defense systems surround much of this infrastructure. The rocket force base is one of more than 40 throughout the country, because why try to preserve the natural beauty of a tropical paradise when you can fill it with explosives? It was built in 2019 and houses DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missiles that some analysts call carrier killers. These are conventional weapons, but they can travel over 900 miles, allowing the People's Liberation Army to conduct precision strikes against ships quite far into the Pacific, which would make things a lot more complicated should the US ever get in a military clash with China. Indeed, Admiral Samuel Paparo, who heads the US Indo-Pacific Command, says there's no denying the increase in the capability within the South China Sea is a threat to US interests, which might explain why the US and its allies have been performing so many joint military drills in the region lately. This is an important location for the CCP's grand strategy in the South China Sea, where China has disputes with several countries and has clashed with many of them. Their grand strategy in the South China Sea, of course, being, I call dibs. China isn't just building bases. It's creating capabilities that could neutralize the existing US advantage should a conflict in the area erupt. Well, a bigger conflict, that is. A former US commander of the Office of Naval Intelligence said that China is working very hard at having superiorities there that nobody else can match. They've built an ability to project power with multiple types of capabilities: air, missile, militia, ships, submarines. And we need to build up our capability and military posture with allies to forestall a Chinese attack. Hainan is also very close to the Philippines and Taiwan, where Chinese military intimidation has only increased. Washington's assets are not as close, which means the US would have less time and fewer advantages when it comes to defending its allies should a clash break out. Well, a bigger clash, that is. But this isn't even just a military concern. The South China Sea, including near Hainan, is thought to have substantial supplies of oil and natural gas. Of course, some of that is technically in international waters, or waters belonging to China's neighbors. But we all know that's not an obstacle for China. If China did have access to such an energy supply, that could help it become more energy independent, or even allow it to become an energy exporter, which the CCP would love, since it could boost their manufacturing sector and their declining economy. What it would also do is grant Beijing even more clout on the regional and world stage. So Hainan is vital to the CCP economically as well as militarily. But that's not all. China's space program is also likely to get a boost from these new bases on Hainan. As I mentioned earlier, Hainan is home to the Wenchang space launch site. In 2016, an inaugural launch took place there. Great! As if they didn't try to claim enough territory on Earth, now they're going to try calling dibs on the universe. China touts this site as its portal to space in the 21st century, and the military launches satellites from Wenchang for communications, reconnaissance, and surveillance purposes. But Wenchang is also China's only coastal spaceport, with the other three being in Inner Mongolia and the Shanxi province. Wenchang's position closer to the equator gives rockets a performance boost gained from the Earth's rotational speed. China's latest space modules can be launched only from Wenchang, and the spaceport aims to send astronauts to the moon by 2030. Looking forward to covering Chinese astronauts threatening other astronauts with machetes in 2031. China's been trying to advance its space capabilities for some years now, and wants to make inroads on joint space projects with many developing nations. But the US is also concerned that these space programs are meant to help the CCP militarize the cosmos. The US would scream foul, but in space, no one can hear you scream. The US has reason to be concerned. Lately, the White House has been increasingly focused on the recent elections, along with wars raging across the Middle East and in Ukraine. Furthermore, the Biden administration has continued the legacy of previous presidents in engaging in diplomacy, all while the US military remains unprepared for a war with China, at least according to some metrics. What's happening on Hainan is just further proof that the current US approach isn't working, or at least isn't enough to deal with the challenges posed by the CCP. Thank you for watching. And before you go, check out this video from my show Deep Thoughts While Gaming, about Peanut the Squirrel and the Second Amendment right to bear arms in the game Squirrel with a Gun. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.